what is more important than your financial security? I ended up saving a lot of money because of this unique experience, and that rich people buy assets, not liabilities. I felt much more confident flying down to Tampa, thanks to Google search results, and buying a property, much more confident doing that than investing in the stock market. With the other money that I saved, I hired a financial advisor. I do not think anyone should be paying a percentage of their money to any advisor on an ongoing basis.
Today we have Tess Waresmith on the show. She's an accredited financial counselor, founder of Wealth with Tess, a content creator, and a super fit woman that I met at FinCon in the gym at the hotel we were both staying at for the conference we were at. Welcome to the show, Tess.
Thank you for having me. I'm so glad we met in the gym. That feels perfect for the beginning of our blooming friendship.
Yes. So on that note, tell us about your first job out of college.
Oh, yes. So I graduated in 2009, famously a terrible time to graduate right after the financial crisis. And I thought I was such a big deal with my cool bachelor's degree that I was going to find a job easy. And I got rejected from about 30 different jobs. I was looking for jobs in finance and marketing, mostly Fortune 500 companies. And I had been a springboard diver for most of my life. I was very privileged and I got a full athletic scholarship to college for springboard diving. And so my old coach called me and he said, Tess, they're looking for national level and Olympic level divers on this cruise ship. You should go. And I thought, well, that's ridiculous. Like I have a bachelor's degree now. Like I'm a big deal. Like I'm going to go get a real job. And then maybe a month later, when I still didn't have said real job and it looked pretty bleak, I was like, okay, fine. So I end up on this cruise ship on Royal Caribbean in a aqua show at sea. So it was a diving show with a whole pool, stage, trampoline, aerials, all this stuff. And it ended up being the most wonderful experience ever. I got to meet people from all over the world. My job was literally to do flips and get paid for it. And from like a financial perspective, it was amazing because my first job, I didn't have any expenses. So they pay for your food, they pay for your closet, lodging, and everything's paid for. The crew bar drinks were $2, shots were like $1. So I ended up, even though I wasn't making a ton of money as basically a circus performer, I ended up saving a lot of money because of this unique experience. And that's how I ended up investing in my first rental property in Tampa. So it really is actually the beginning of my money journey, even though I would never have connected those dots at the time.
That's so epic. Yeah. So I told you off air that as a kid, I was super obsessed with gymnastics. I mean, my childhood dream was actually to be a ninja. So I was obsessed with both gymnastics and martial arts as a kid. And then during COVID, I got, once I went to high school and whatnot, I moved into soccer and got away from gymnastics. But I picked up gymnastics rings during COVID because all the gyms were closed, and then kind of refound that love of movement with my body and gymnastics. And so I love that you were a circus performer. I think that's such an amazing physical feat. Like, diving in itself is pretty wild. And then the fact that you're doing flips and an aquatic show is pretty awesome. So
Thank you. I do, in full transparency, look back now at some of those videos and I go, I don't know if I would do that today again.
Yeah.
Like some of those dives and stunts on the ship were epic, and now I'm like, wow, I did great back then. I would be afraid now. So
yeah. So did you make it out with no injuries or freak accidents or anything?
Oh no, I've injured every single part of my body. I've ruptured both of my Achilles. I have torn labrum in both my shoulders, patella tendonitis, another surgery in my other ankle, fractured ankle. That wasn't all circus performing. That was life of an athlete. And even as recent as last year, I ruptured my second Achilles. So the price you pay for doing sports at a young age and getting a scholarship to college has been a lot of injuries. And honestly, that is to tie this to money to transparently is one of the reasons I'm very grateful that I focused on my money early, because I do have a lot of physical issues, and I'm sure I will have more injuries in the future, unfortunately, just based on the pounding I did to my body as a kid. And so I'm very grateful to be able to find like good help for that. And a lot insurance doesn't cover that stuff. So the best
Yeah.
physical therapists I know are cash only.
Yeah, maybe after the show, I'm gonna have to ask you about the Achilles tendon stuff, because I lightly injured mine
Mm,
last week playing pickleball, because I'm playing pickleball 7 days a week for 2 to 5 hours a day.
that's
Um,
amazing. That
but
is
yeah.
so awesome. I love that commitment so much.
Yeah, we'll talk about off air though, because we don't need to bore people with my Achilles tendon or pickleball obsession. But my follow up question to this is, yes, you weren't making a ton of money, but you were saving a lot of money because all your cost of living was covered, essentially. And even your drinking was subsidized, which
Correct.
was amazing. So what did you do with all that money?
So thankfully, I had enough fear because of growing up, because of the way my mother used to talk about money, that I knew I didn't want to just spend it. Very early on, I was always very into like having money, hoarding money. At this point, I didn't understand how to invest or anything like that, but I knew I didn't want to spend it all in one place. And so I did fortunately meet someone on the cruise ship that ended up being my boyfriend for a few years. Great guy. And he introduced me to some finance books. So he gave me the book Rich Dad Poor Dad, which I honestly don't think is a fantastic book, but it did teach me one really important thing, and I can summarize it for you in one sentence, is that rich people buy assets, not liabilities. You're welcome. You don't have to read the book more. That's basically the whole thing. And so when I learned that, I was like, okay, I'm going to go buy some things that make more money. That's all that book taught me. And I guess in that way, I'm grateful for it. But again, you do not have to read it. That's like pretty much the message from that book. So the first thing I did was I Googled with my boyfriend, best place to invest in real estate. I think I was 24, 25 at the time. And Google delivered Florida, specifically Tampa and Daytona. And so we flew down to Tampa and Daytona, and I bought a 3-bed, 2-bath house for $80,000, which is crazy. This is 2013 at this point, 2012. And I did everything wrong. I didn't get a proper inspection. Everything was wrong with the property. I didn't cash flow that property for years. It was in a bad neighborhood. That is like the biggest real estate investing mistake, by the way. Like the one thing you can never really change is location. So I made like the worst mistake you can possibly make in real estate investing. But thankfully, that neighborhood happened to turn around. So somebody was on my side, and thankfully, just based on the market and appreciation, I ended up being very positive on that investment. But the first few years were pretty intense. I had a tenant with like 16 cats. It was a whole thing. And then after that, I also knew I wanted to invest in the stock market, but for whatever reason, and I think it's because real estate is tangible, like you can see what you're buying. I felt much more confident flying down to Tampa thanks to Google search results and buying a property, much more confident doing that than investing in the stock market. And I think that's partially messaging, it's partially the tangible nature of real estate. But I just remember thinking for so long, investing is for rich people. It's for people with resources. It's for people that are much smarter than me. I'm just not intelligent enough to understand the stock market and how to pick investments and all that stuff. And so with the other money that I saved, I hired a financial advisor who is a fiduciary, somebody legally obligated to act in my best interest. And I basically gave them my money and said, make it be more. And I didn't log into my account for several years. And that experience ended up creating a lot of shame for me. I'm okay now, and I'm grateful for that because I learned a lot from that experience. But fast forward, I eventually got really interested in financial independence and very concerned about what was happening with my money and just motivated based on some conversations I had with people around me that I cared about. And so I ended up starting to actually log in and try to figure out what was happening. And very quickly, I figured out I was in super high fee funds. I was being charged an advisory fee, which I knew. What I didn't know is I was also being charged load fees, which means every time they bought an investment, there was another fee for buying it. That's like a cover charge at like a Target. Like that's not a thing that should happen, but it does in the financial industry. And then I was also being charged a fee for the platform, like all in tens of thousands of dollars in fees. I was sold a garbage financial product called a flex deferred annuity, which was not suitable for somebody in their 20s that was already on track to be okay financially. So just a ton of mistakes. I was super angry about that. And that anger fueled me learning as much as possible about personal finance. And then I learned about financial independence, retire early, and that there was a whole group of people actually trying to become financially free before 65. And I thought, what a concept. That sounds great. So that was sort of the second beginning. I think the first beginning was the cruise ship, being in a wonderful position to have some cash to invest in some of these things. But then I would say the real beginning of my financial journey was a few years later when I broke up with that financial advisor and really took full ownership and agency over my money and made a plan for how I was going to grow it and not retire at 65.
Yeah. I really appreciate you sharing this because I know a few people in my life that have a financial advisor or have been sold like an IUL, and they're so like like ashamed that they're in the
Yeah.
position that they're kind of not doing anything about it.
Yeah.
And um I'm actually in next week I'm bringing someone on the show to specifically dive into IULs and indexed universal life insurance and whole life insurance. So we don't need to cover that. But what I do want to cover with you is kind of like your honest, unfiltered thoughts on financial advisors. And now I'm fully aware there are good ones, but your experience was not a good one. And I think
No.
there are a lot of people out there who think they're in good hands, but they're not. So I just would love to just give you the platform to kind of like, you know, explain to people like one, what they should be checking if they have a financial advisor, and like really two, why they don't even need one necessarily.
Sure. You just opened up a huge can of worms. This is my favorite topic. So
Let's
stop me if
go.
I'm like, let's go. I'm so ready. Okay. So, first of all, I agree that there are some good financial advisors. There is a massive part of the financial industry model that is broken. And so I will come right out and say that I do not think anyone should be paying a percentage of their money to any advisor on an ongoing basis. It doesn't make sense. It's a conflict of interest. It is not transparent. Most people paying a percent fee have no idea how much they're actually paying, how much money they're missing out on growth. And so I'm not saying all advisors that charge a percent are bad advisors, but I do think that model is inherently broken because it creates so many conflict of interest. Like their only goal is to keep your money, right? That's how they make money. And so if you have other investing opportunities, if you want to buy a house, there are so many circumstances where you might want to use that money where they're going to be biased. It's also opaque because there's no schedule that shows you how much of your money is going to these percent fees. Even if you download your statement, it doesn't show you on your statement how much you're paying. Like, think about everything else we buy in life. We get an invoice that explains how much we're paying. That doesn't exist. And this is potentially one of the biggest expenses you will spend in your life. Like if you're investing hundreds a month for 10, 20, 30 years, you're going to pay a financial advisor multiple six figures of your money, even if it's only 1%. So that's the first thing I'll say is just like blanket statement. I don't like the assets under management model. And I also think it hides other fees too, because a lot of times it's pitched as it's 1%, but it's not just 1%, because every fund that a financial advisor chooses for you, so every investment that they choose on your behalf, also has a fee. And sometimes that's called an expense ratio, by the way. So that's just a fee expressed as an annual percentage. And so, yes, you're paying them 1% on average, but then they're choosing investments that also have a fee. And many times they get commission for choosing specific investments on your behalf that could also have a fee. So there's just like, and a lot of times these financial advisors aren't even choosing investments for you. They're using an algorithm or a platform. Sometimes they're even choosing like funds of funds, which is basically like when they choose an investment fund that has other funds in it, which is basically like the equivalent. And I'm totally stealing this analogy from a fellow finance friend, Tyler Gardner. He's great. I'm going to give him a shout out. But he explained it, and I thought this was the best analogy. He's like, it's basically like hiring a chauffeur to sit in the back with you, and then they hire another chauffeur to like drive the limo. That's like what a lot of financial advisors are doing. So I think the problem with that model is that it's opaque from a transparency perspective, and it breeds all kinds of ways to get money out from underneath you because you don't know how much you're paying. So that's assets under management. There are flat fee advisors that charge a flat fee to manage your money on a yearly basis, or sometimes you can hire them hourly. I think that model is much better for pretty much everyone. The problem I have is that you cannot possibly choose a good financial advisor unless you have some very basic knowledge about investing. And this is where people go, well, Tess, like, shouldn't I outsource this, right? I want to be smart. I want to outsource it to someone smarter than me. You can't possibly do that unless you have a little bit of information yourself. And so when I say you need to learn about investing, I'm not saying that you need to go out and get a PhD and become Warren Buffett. I'm saying you need to read like 2 books. You need to listen to a few more episodes of this podcast. You need to talk to your wealthy friends and ask them questions. You don't need to be a finance expert, but it's your money. You worked really hard for that. And no one, no matter how much they're getting paid, is going to care about your money more than you do. So if you want to hire a financial advisor for some stuff, that's great, but you better be really clear on what you need them for and what questions you have, and have enough of a baseline education to have an intelligent, collaborative conversation with them, because there's more than one right answer in personal finance. It's not like there's like one roadmap that we're all following that's the answer to what we need to do. And so the only way that we can be an active participant in our money and have agency over that is getting a basic financial education. And again, don't tell me you don't have time for this, because I'm talking about a 10-minute YouTube video a day. Like, you just have to be committed to learning about this, and it can totally change your life and also make you a lot more money, because once you're paying attention, you're going to be more motivated to invest more. You're going to be more motivated to look at your cash flow. A financial advisor isn't going to be like, let's go through your bank statements and see where you can spend money differently. So I think for all those reasons, to summarize my opinion on financial advisors, I think there is a time and place for flat fee, transparent advisors, but I don't think it's an excuse not to learn the basics yourself. And I think the assets under management model is totally broken and in many ways like downright criminal. And I will end this by saying the people that operate under that model are not criminal. The system is in and of itself. And even the financial advisor that I worked with, she is not a bad person, but she was trained by a system that doesn't have the best interests of clients in mind. And so I want to be really clear about this. Like, I'm not like, financial advisors are trying to feed their family. They're trying to do the best with the information that they have. I'm just saying the model and the institutions in which they're working with are not meant to really support people. They're meant to make money for the institutions themselves.
Yeah. I'm paraphrasing the what I want to say, but there's this saying that like never you never want to like trust someone whose paycheck depends on them not understanding the ramifications of what they're selling, right? So like, for a assets under management advisor, financial advisor, or one who's selling these products that they get commissions on, they are incentivized to make money at the cost of their client. And like you said, it's not necessarily that they are a bad person, but the system in which they are hired, employed, paid, and trained literally strongly encourages them to do this to their clients.
Correct. Yeah. And you're in sales, right? Like you were in sales in your
Yep.
former life. I mean, if this hasn't happened to you and you're listening to this podcast, you are going to get a call from an old friend, a family member, a cousin you haven't talked to in 10 years, and they're going to be like, how are things going? I want to tell you about my career switch. By the way, what do you have for life insurance? Right. And
Yeah.
that's like they're
Yeah.
literally being told to reach out to their network and see who needs financial products. And then that leads into investing products. And then it's
Yep.
a whole snowball. But like most people, they didn't go out and necessarily find an advisor. It's like their dad's cousin or like
100%.
Gary, like their uncle's guy, Gary, or whatever. And then that makes it harder to get out of the relationship because you're like,
Yep.
well, it's Gary. Like I know
It's
Gary.
a family friend.
Right.
Yeah.
And that is so much worse because at the end of the day, like it is your money. Like Gary might be a nice guy, but he still works in a fucked up system and it's
Yeah.
your money. So like it's interesting because even when people know that they should leave their financial advisor or they're asking questions about fees and they're not getting clear answers, people will stay with them because they feel bad. And I'm like, this is your retirement. Like I
Yeah.
understand that emotionally that can feel weird to break up with a family friend in that way, but like what is more important than your financial security? Like that's what you're talking about there.
Yeah. And I ran some numbers while you were talking. If you invest $1,000 per month for 35 years and you pay just 1%, which seems like nothing, 1% is nothing, right? You're paying $431,000 to that advisor. That is, which is insane. Like, does anyone deserve to get $500,000 of your dollars for? Yeah.
It's crazy. And if you think about that, like that is like 4 years of retirement, right? Like that's like like if you're trying to retire and live off like 100 grand a year, you're retiring 4 years later because your chauffeur charged you a lot to sit in the back with you and hire a different chauffeur to drive the car. Like that is not worth it at all. I'm so glad you did that math because I could sit here and do this math all day. I'm getting a little like spicy just thinking about it.
Yeah. And that's what, like, we talked about this before we hit record, but it's like the whole power of small changes and small numbers. Like 1% doesn't seem like that much, but over 35 years of investing, it's $431,000. Like it's an insane amount. And I also totally agree with you. I think there's kind of two things I want to point out. One, I think, and I think you share this view, everyone can learn how to invest to build up their money for retirement. But I think there is a time when a fee only advisor makes sense. And to me, one of those times is when you're going to actually like start to draw down from your investments. And that's when like, you're leaving the 9 to 5 and you're not planning on doing any, or whatever, you're leaving paid work and you're not planning to earn any more money and you're going to start spending what you've accumulated. I think there is value in getting kind of like a second opinion slash like, here's a plan of how you spend that down without running out of money. But I think that should be a fee only advisor. You should not give them all your money. And like, God, I have this gym friend who has like 7 million. He's an older guy, and he just gave that 7 million to an assets under management. And he's like super healthy, fit, super fit 65-year-old. He's going to live at least another 30 years. So 1% on that 7 million, I don't even need to do the math. It's going to be insane. It's going to be millions of dollars. And I'm just like, what are you doing? But another friend, you probably know Jeremy Schneider from Personal Finance Club.
Yeah.
He started this company called Hello Nectarine. That's .com. And you can go there and you can find a fee only financial advisor that is vetted, and they can like do the financial modeling plan for you for your retirement. And so like if you're at that stage, I think Jeremy's site, we'll put a link in the show notes, is a great place to find a fee only one who's been vetted by someone in the financial independence community. And I think that is a great time to use a financial advisor. And then also, like, some people have really complex financial situations arise, like like maybe they got a huge inheritance or something happened. And I think there are other times, but for the most part, for the wealth building phase, I think 99% of people can learn how to invest and grow their own money.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. I think those examples you provided are perfect. When you are withdrawing, there are ways to be more tax efficient. So having a platform like Jeremy's is phenomenal. And I think that that's a perfect example of why education is so valuable, because if you learn the basics for yourself and you learn how to build wealth, like how to pick a few simple index funds investments in your Roth and your 401k and maybe a brokerage. You learn that skill. That's pretty basic. Everyone is capable of doing that. Once you understand that, you can also understand what information you need when, and then you can go to an amazing platform like Nectarine and hire someone for an hour and ask them the right questions and get the answers you need and save like thousands of dollars that you would have had to pay to a financial advisor and talk to someone about what you need most. And so I couldn't agree more. I think same thing in retirement, having a flat fee advisor, tax strategist help you with tax efficient withdrawals totally makes sense. You wouldn't know to do that if you didn't have a basic education in the first place. So investing and personal finance education doesn't just help you build wealth, it also helps you find the right people. And that's been true even today. I invest in real estate. There's a lot of things I still don't know that I'm still constantly learning about, but I know how to find people that know the answers and I know the questions to ask. And that skill in and of itself is incredibly valuable when it comes to wealth building.
Yeah. I really think when it comes to money, you have to take 100% responsibility. I mean, my view is you have to take 100% responsibility for every area of your life. Even if you've been dealt a bad hand, it's still your responsibility to clean it up because it's your life. But especially so with money. But I know that can be challenging depending on kind of how your situation was growing up with your parents. So I want to use this as an opportunity to talk a little bit about your childhood and money, because you've created some incredible content that I think is so valuable, and more people need to look at their own stuff from childhood that will kind of unlock and help them both heal and grow and transform in the area of money if they just do some of the work that you've done. So what was money like for you growing up with your parents?
Yeah, so I had an interesting, very binary situation because I lived with my mother and my stepdad, and the conversation was constantly, we don't have enough for this. We have to make sure we can afford this. We have to spend as little as possible, get the cheapest cars. The conversation around money was always like fear, not having enough, being conservative, etc. And then on the weekends, my biological father would come pick me up in a Mercedes AMG or a fancy new Audi. And we'd go to his house, and his house was filled with expensive art and coffee table books. And, you know, I was a kid, I didn't really know the difference. It all looked very expensive. And in my mind, he was far more successful than my mother and my stepdad. And I remember trying to figure out like what was the purpose of money, if that makes sense. Like, well, like why doesn't my mom have more? Why is she so afraid? How did my dad get all this money? So I also had a complex relationship with my father, in that he was not a nice person, in hindsight, narcissist and sociopath, and so it was very difficult to win any kind of approval. And so I think when I was young, maybe in college or sometime around there, I decided that I was going to be rich, and I was going to buy a Ferrari Enzo specifically because that was his favorite car, and that was going to make him be proud of me and like successful. Ferrari Enzo is like a limited edition, by the way. I could actually look up. I think it was like only a year. I think it was like 2004, so it was probably like 16 when I decided this was the path to getting my father's approval, I guess. And then for a whole bunch of reasons, we didn't talk for many years. And then my sister died, and he called, we reconnected. So now I'm in my late 20s, and he asked me for money, and I'm like shocked. I'm like, he's asking me for money? Like something must have happened. And then I start like pulling the thread, and I realized that he never had money. He just looked rich. He spent all of his money on fancy things. He talked about fancy things. That was such a huge part of his identity. And it like shattered all of my life goals, because all of my life goals was like, that's success. And I need to make sure I have like the nicest car and the nicest house. And like, that's what like rich people do. And so it was, I mean, in hindsight, like the best lesson possible, right? Because so many of us grow up seeing, especially now with social media, we see all these, I'm going to put in air quotes, rich people on social media with their cars and their houses. And I was just like, oh, this whole thing is a lie. Like, this is not true at all. And so around that same time, my mother had told me this really heart-wrenching story about what it was like to be left by my biological father with two babies. And I'm like, I already knew this, like the basics of it. But what I didn't realize was that when my father left, she hired a dating service to help her find a financially responsible man. Like that was her intention, was I'm going to go high. And this is the 90s. There's no Hinge. So this is like straight up like manila folders. So effort, like high effort to find this person. And thankfully, my stepdad ended up being a great guy, and recently passed. But I just remember thinking, okay, all of a sudden my entire worldview has changed. Like I thought my dad was rich this whole time. Turns out he's full of shit. My mom is actually doing okay, but also made a massive life decision just to make sure she was financially comfortable. And I was like, that's it. I gotta figure this out for myself, because clearly nothing is as it seems. And that's when I started to realize that having options was the richest you could be. And that was the motivator for me, honestly, diving into all this stuff with my financial advisor and figuring out what was going on, is that the idea of having options to do whatever I want, spend time with whoever I want, and not have to rely on anyone was so motivating for me that it completely changed my focus in the way that I look at money and helped me reach financial independence in my 30s. And so I share that part specifically because I think a lot of people struggle with wanting to take control of their money and looking for motivation and looking for time and not finding it. And I really believe that your why has to be more powerful than anything that's going to keep you from learning. And so for me, my why was so powerful because I had this incredibly heartbreaking conversation with my mother and just realizing I never wanted to be in that position. And that was my why. And so if you're listening to this podcast, you're obviously interested in improving your life financially and otherwise. What I would say to you is, what is most important to you that you're not getting out of your life right now, and write it down and sit with that, because that is the thing that's going to help you move the needle, help you learn how to invest, help you build wealth, help you get to the gym, help you get healthier. Options for me also go into health. I've had so many injuries, but what's motivated me to come back and get physical therapy and continue to go to the gym is because I want to be able to have options to experience new sports and hobbies and whatnot. So I think finding your why is such an underrated part of your financial journey, in terms of like actually helping you find the discipline to get to where you want to go and get the information you need to be successful.
Yeah. One of the things I always tell every client I work with, and I share this on social media all the time, is if financial independence isn't one of your top goals, meaning like top 3, you will not achieve it. It has to be a top 3 goal. And ideally it's number 1 or number 2 up until you get it. Because there's so many things in modern day life that will distract you from that goal, that if you don't have an incredibly strong why and it being a top goal, you'll never achieve it. And it's so amazing for me to listen to your story about your dad, and I'm sorry that it happened like that, but I think it was like a blessing in disguise, because it empowered you to become the woman you are today, who now educates so many women on how to master their money and like become financially free. But like, I grew up in a poor family too. And like, my dream as a kid was to be rich because money was such a struggle. But in my 20s, rich was looking rich. So I drove the fancy Range Rover. I lived in a luxury condo. I ate out every day at nice restaurants. And even though I was making good money, I was getting more and more broke every year, to the point where I ended my 20s. And in my, like, when I started my 30s, I was 80 grand in debt and 6 years behind on my taxes. And the reason I share the behind on my taxes is because growing up, my parents were always behind on their taxes. And so like, I just naturally inherited their money habits. Even though like, I have other podcasts on this, but it's wild what we pick up from our parents in our childhood around money. And if we don't take the time to do that inner work, to reflect, to learn, to heal, it will follow us through all of our life up until we take the time to consciously work through it. So I want to know, because you work with, a lot of specifically women, and you have worked with a lot of them over the last several years. What are some of the like most common limiting beliefs that women have when it comes to money and life?
I would say the number one thing that holds women back, and my answer has changed since I started financial education and counseling years ago and now, I think there's 2 primary things that kind of like encapsulate all of the limiting beliefs. The first one is a fear of messing it up. The fear of risk, the fear of losing money, the fear of making the wrong financial decision, and then it just ends up in paralysis. And I think so many limiting beliefs of money can be wrapped up into that one theme, a fear of just like doing it wrong. And so much so that, circling back to our conversation about financial advisors, I've talked to so many women that have a financial advisor that is charging them a percent. They know it. They've asked them about it. They've had not helpful, sometimes very condescending conversations about it, and they still won't leave their financial advisor because the fear of doing it wrong themselves is greater than the fear of someone that they know is not acting in their best interest, maybe doing it wrong, which we could dig into. There's a lot behind that, right? Like media messaging, just what it's like to be a woman in general. There's so much to unpack there. But what I say to that is that the only way that you start to make decisions, again, is if your why is strong enough and you make it a priority. A lot of the same women that are saying, I'm afraid to mess it up, they haven't read an investing book. They haven't digested a podcast. They haven't like taken the steps to start to educate themselves enough. They haven't, maybe to your point, made it a priority. Because if you say this is my number one priority, which is what it became for me, every book on my shelf became about personal finance, which kind of leads me to the second limiting belief, which is around money being like a taboo topic or claiming yourself not to be a money person, which is super dangerous language. We are all money people. We all transact with money every single day. This is like the most important tool we have in our toolkit to get our time back, to be healthy. Being healthy costs money. If you can get better food and get a trainer if you need it, or in my case, thanks, shout out to all the physical therapists I've worked with over the years. Like money is an important part of health, wellness, security, the ability to walk away from a shitty relationship, a toxic job. Like, don't tell me money's not important and you're not a money person, because we all need a basic financial education and confidence with money. It's going to make your life better. So instead of this taboo and sometimes shame around money, or like it's bad to talk about money because it's, I don't want to be greedy, and like billionaires are bad, and there's all this like shame and anguish around how money makes you a bad person. Like money is just a tool. It's just a tool, and all of us need it to survive and to thrive. So I think that I don't want to mess it up. I'm not like a money person, or I'm bad at money. Those are good ones. And again, a lot of times those are people that also sort of believe that they should have already had this figured out. Like you're either born with financial information or you're not, which I guess would be the third, is that just like, some people are money people and some aren't. And it's just a skill, just like everything else. We're not born, knowing how to ride a bike. We learn how to do that. Learning how to manage your money is the same thing. It's just heavier because there's so much emotion and psychology around it, and childhood beliefs, and now your parents worked with money and all that stuff. So that would be number 3. And I'd say number 4 would be, I don't have time. Like my life is too busy to focus on my finances, which is so circular because you will never have time if you don't learn to focus on your finances. So if you want time, the best way to buy your time back is to take control of your money. And you can do that in 15 minutes a day. Like whatever time you're spending scrolling, put down your phone and open a book. And again, all this is easier said than done, which is why I think all of this has to go back to, why are you doing this in the first place? Like, why does this really matter? Is it your family? Is it options? Is it fear of not ending up like your mother? What is that thing that's going to really help you move the needle? Is it that you have a cause that you care about enough that you want to donate more money to it? That's an awesome one, right? Like if you don't want to get rich for yourself, get rich for me and donate to causes that I care about. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I think that that's a big one too, that people say, well, like, oh, I have this amazing friend. He's like this incredible chef. He's won all kinds of awards, doesn't focus on money. He's got offered this massive salary. And he was just like, well, I don't need that. And I was like, but I need you to have it because I know that you're going to spend it in amazing and beautiful ways and donate it to people that need it. So I need you to go get that money. And it was just like such an interesting conversation because he's just such a generous person. He's like, I think the salary was like 400,000 or 500,000. He's like, I only really need 100,000. I was like, you will absolutely not say that. And like, but this person is somebody with crazy beliefs that money is a bad thing, which is why
Yeah.
he was turning it down. Right. So I think that those are probably my top 4. I should have this figured out. I'm afraid to mess it up. I don't have time. And I'm just like deciding to identify as not a money person, which is really with love. I say all this with love. Like, and by the way, everything I just said, I have done all of those things. I had every single one of those limiting beliefs before I had my big wake up call in my 20s. So I think that if you're listening to this and that's all resonating with you, no shame at all. I think everyone that's probably in the financial independence community had one or multiple of those limiting beliefs at some time.
Yeah. I've worked with a number of women who literally said essentially what you said is like they were ashamed that they don't know what to do when it comes to like money and investing. So they just didn't do anything. And fortunately, I guess, you know, for whatever reason, they decided to work with me. And I was like, hey, it's okay. I'm going to teach you. Like, it's like, I didn't know how to do this either. Like, you know what I mean? None of us did. Like you said, like we weren't born knowing how to ride a bike. We had to learn. Right. And, you know,
Right.
saving and investing is a skill, right? And there's one of the things I talk a lot about. I call it the wealth pyramid or the wealth triangle. And there's three sides to money, right? There's making money, which is like earning it through a job. There's saving money, meaning like keeping what you make. And then there's growing your money. And they're all related, but they're three different skills. And most people overly focus on like, oh, I just need to make more money. But if you never learn how to keep what you make, you will never, doesn't matter how much money you make, you'll never have any to invest, right? And then everyone at some point, you have to learn how to multiply the money that you keep through investing. So really it's about making, keeping, and growing. But none of us are born with that skill set. We have to learn the skill set. Now, some people are lucky and their parents teach them some or all of these things, but most of us don't learn this. And we have to go out of our way
Yeah.
to learn all three sides of becoming wealthy.
Yeah. And I don't want to come off as insensitive when I say this. So that's my qualifier. But you said earlier something I love and I say all the time is that it might not be your fault, but it is your responsibility, right? Whatever that's all we can do when it comes to our money. And I hear people all the time say, my parents didn't teach me, and they use it as an excuse. And I just want to be like, that's like all of us. Like, there's like a very small percentage of people whose parents were like, this is a Roth IRA and here's how you choose funds. Like, most of our parents, especially if you're millennials, they had a pension and like they were for sure certain about Social Security. Like, they don't know anything about money. So we got to stop being like, oh, my parents like didn't teach me. Like, girl, none of our parents taught us. Like, maybe a few like wealthy kids got that message, but like most people did not learn from their parents. And unfortunately, it wasn't a requirement in school. And in college, I took intro to jazz as my elective. I would have much rather had intro to like index funds, but it is what it is, right? Like, we did not get the education we should have gotten. That sucks. That's not our fault. And so now it's our responsibility to go find it.
Yeah. Your chef friend, like there's two kind of like money limiting beliefs that you made me think about. One is money is the root of all evil.
Mm-hmm.
And like if you subconsciously believe this, you will never become wealthy because you at a subconscious level think money is bad, so of course you're not going to accumulate it. And then the other one is rich people are bad. And like
Mm-hmm.
are like bad people, right? And I'm like, and I won't. There was a little bit of that in my family, like rich people are bad people. But if you think about it, there are poor people who are bad people. There are middle class people who are bad people, and there are really rich people who are bad people. There are also poor people who are great people. There are middle class people who are great people, and there are really rich people who do so much good for this world. So it doesn't matter. It's not like people, there's a spectrum of good, bad, and everywhere in between. And money has nothing to do with it. It's just what you do with the money that makes you good or not good.
100%.
So I want to circle back to your journey. So how did you go from working with a financial advisor to then pursuing financial independence on your own?
So after my mother told me this story about her not having options that made me so uncomfortable. We were at a Chili's, by the way. I like remember this moment. It's like burned into my brain. We're at a Chili's. She's like, I hired a dating service to meet someone because I was financially scared. And I literally like went home and I was like, what the fuck? I need to figure this out. And I found a book called Money Master the Game by Tony Robbins. It was my ex-boyfriend's. It was just like on my shelf. I'd never even given it a second look. I like opened it that night and I'm like furiously reading. I'm like, oh my God, I gotta figure this out. So that was like the moment that like for me, the very specific moment when I made the decision to figure this out no matter what. And that book does a really good job of talking about fees. I think it's a fine book. I don't think it's like my favorite financial book, but it was so great because it taught me the basics of fees and how they compound. And so once I read that and I figured out the high level of what I was paying my financial advisor, I didn't like break up with them right away because like many people in that situation, I was afraid of doing things wrong. I wasn't sure I could do it with myself. I still had that limiting belief, even as I started to get more educated. I just like really thought like, surely there's something they're doing that is special and unique that I am not capable of. And so rather than break up with them right away, also, by the way, this was a friend. This was somebody I knew personally. So it wasn't like easy for me to walk away. Like this was a personal relationship and this was about to get awkward. So I opened my own account at Vanguard and I stopped investing money with this financial advisor and I started putting it in my own account. And I bought a very simple investment, a total US stock market index fund, which is just for those of you new to investing, it's just a fund that holds pretty much every single publicly traded stock in the United States. And I bought that. And that's all I did for a while. I kept reading, I kept learning, and that's what I did. And I watched my account and I watched my advisor's account. And I started to realize that I was invested far too conservatively for my age. So I was in about 30 or 40% bonds in that account with my financial advisor, which is ludicrous for somebody in their 20s. So it now, and if you're new to like asset allocation just means basically in the context of this conversation, how much money you have in stocks versus bonds. And if you have more in bonds, your portfolio is quote less risky, but also grows slower. So my money was going pretty slowly. I also started to go back and do the math of how much I was paying them in fees, but also what the market had done and what my returns were. And my returns were so far under market because I was paying such high fees and because I was invested so conservatively. And I also started to notice that some of the investments, this looked super complicated. I had 30 different funds in one account. Some of them were like the same. So after a while, it probably took me like 6 months to a year to actually finally like break up with my financial advisor. But I do think that what I did right in hindsight was that I opened my own account and I started doing it myself so that when I felt confident to leave, it was easy for me to do that. I think it's really hard, even when you learn the basics yourself and you're like, I know I'm getting ripped off with fees. I know this isn't quite right. If you don't have enough confidence or a plan for yourself, it can be really hard to make that move. So I do think that in hindsight was a very good plan and something that helped me really take control of my money. And then since then, I have learned so much. And honestly, like the more I learned, the more I was just validated in that investing can be so simple. And my investing strategy and the majority of my retirement and brokerage accounts is very simple. I do some alternative investing, but that was really the beginning, the breakup, and how I made that transition over time.
I love it. I just want to double click on the fact that confidence comes through experience, and the fact that you opened up your own Vanguard account, did some reading, started investing in some index funds yourself, like that gave you the courage to then be like, hey, financial advisor, we got to break up. And you said this took you 6 to 12 months to do, but like that 6 to 12 month transition period then completely shifted your financial trajectory for the rest of your life. And
Yeah.
I'm sure it's going to make you millions of dollars richer at the end of your life by going through that 6 to 12 month transition
Millions.
period. Millions,
Yes.
yes.
Millions. Yes. Yeah, like millions. Like I want to double tap that because I think a lot of times we're like, oh, I don't have time to learn this. And I want to be like, what if you could learn a skill that would help you have six figures or potentially millions more in the future? You'd be like, yeah, sure. But then when we hear it's investing, we're like, ooh, I don't know if that's for me. Like that's what we're talking about here. It is truly life-changing. Absolutely.
Yeah. I know you read Money Master Game by Tony Robbins. Those who listen to the show know, like, Tony Robbins has been like my dad gave me a Tony Robbins book, Awaken the Giant Within, when I was a kid. So I'm like, that's how my obsession with personal development came about. I do agree. I don't think that's like the best book to read for like money and investing. So I'm just curious, what are some of the books that you either personally enjoy and think are good or recommend to other people?
Yeah, I love The Psychology of Money. I think that should
Yeah.
be required reading for everyone. I know you
Yeah.
had JL Collins on recently, I think, right? I mean,
Yeah.
his book is great, so simple, straightforward. What Simple Path to Wealth, right? Is
Yeah.
JL Collins. I would also say Just Keep Buying by Nick Majuli. That is a great book for people that want to learn more about investing and people that feel like the simple path can't work. Like basically it's an entire book of all this data that shows how simple automated investing in index funds is great. And it's a little bit different because JL Collins is a little bit more tactical and a little bit more like qualitative. Nick Majuli has like data point after data point, and it's not hard to read. It's very interesting to read. So I don't want you, if you're like not a math person, I don't want you not to read it. I think it's great. But yeah, he's got some great stuff. He also has a great blog. I think those are probably my top three. Yeah, I think those are my top three. Those three, like read three of those three books would change your life.
Yeah. And then you also have a free investing guide, right?
Yes, I do. So I've tried to take all the lessons from those three books and along with a lot of other ways to save money, simple ways to invest, including like simple actual investing examples and portfolios all in one guide. So if you want to check that out, that's totally free. And that's at moneyconfidentclub.com/savvy. And that guide also will give you access to my newsletter where I share updates on investing and everything in between.
Awesome. We'll put a link to the investing guide in the show notes. So if you're listening, just go to the show description and the link will be there for you and you can get Tessa's investing guide. So the next part of your journey I want to cover is you leaving the corporate workplace. Because yes, you did do this whole like amazing aerial acrobat career for a bit, but then you got into the corporate world eventually. So question one is like, how long were you in the corporate world and what were you doing? And then question two is like, when did you leave and why did you leave?
Sure. So after about 9 years at my main corporate job, I had kind of reached a point where there wasn't anywhere for me to go. I was a VP of business operations. There wasn't any spot for me available on the C suite. So I love the company. It was a good company, good culture. And around that time, I kind of started to look at other stuff. I was also very transparent with the CEO who I reported to. So we had conversations about what my growth could look like and what might make sense. Around the same time, we had acquired a company which would end up shifting a lot of things in the company. And one of the things that I was often responsible for was the structure of how our company delivered our services. And so after a little while acquiring this business, I sat and I actually remember where I did this. I was in Puerto Rico working remotely and I was trying to figure out how to restructure these teams in a way that made sense. And the decision I came to was kind of to eliminate my own team and to put I oversaw a lot of different departments. So I oversaw revenue operations, project management, analytics, all kinds of stuff. And at that time, we were big enough where these things actually had homes that made sense now. And so I basically eliminated my own position in this restructure. And so I asked the CEO to lunch and I said, "Hey, I want to get lunch." And he was like, "So you're quitting? You're quitting, right? Are you quitting?" He was like kind of nervous. And I said, "Not quite." And so I show him my new org chart eliminating my own position, and he was just like, "You would fire yourself. That's what you would do." Meaning just that like I was always kind of like pushing the envelope. I love being a creative thinker. And so that wasn't like my last day on the job. I ended up helping the company through that transition, and they offered me other positions, but they were kind of all lateral. It was more of the same. And what I didn't realize, Justin, which is so crazy as somebody that was so motivated to build wealth, is I didn't realize I genuinely had enough to, I would say, minimum coast five for sure, potentially financial independence. Like I could live off some of my rental properties and live a small life off my rental. I wouldn't be balling out, but I had enough to, cover my basic expenses. And I realized I had really invested enough that I didn't really need to worry about retirement anymore. And I could go do whatever job I wanted, which was a wild thing to realize when you're chasing this thing for so long, and then all of a sudden you're forced to really look at it and you're like, actually I could make this work. So I looked at some other jobs, I couldn't find anything, and I had already been sharing a lot about my financial journey online because I genuinely, to be candid, feel morally obligated to help people learn the basics of investing, because if I hadn't learned what I learned, my life would look very different. And so I had already been sharing information. And again, my CEO boss, who's such a great guy, he was like, "Why are you looking for jobs? Just go do the thing you're already doing. We all know that you're doing this. Why don't you just go try that?" And I was like, "I'm not a content creator. That's not like me. I'm like a mergers and acquisition girl. I'm like a business operations person." Um, and so I never like intended to be an entrepreneur or build a business that provided coaching and educational services, but I'm so glad I did. And so he kind of nudged me to leave corporate, and so far it's been amazing. I mean, it's definitely hard to build a sustainable business for sure. Content creation is not nearly as easy as people make it look, but I've learned so much since I left through this process that it gets me excited for whatever idea I have next. If I want to build something, I've just learned so many skills that are invaluable just in general in business. So regardless of what I do in the future, I'm very grateful that I fired myself and started talking about money on the internet.
What age did you fire yourself, or and also what year was that,
I was
to give the
35.
audience?
So it was 2 years ago.
Okay. Um, and did you like? I know you're an accredited financial counselor, aka a money coach, financial coach. When you were working at this affiliate marketing agency, were you also on the side coaching people with money? Had you like turned that on so you knew you could make some money from it, or did you like leave and then try to make it at that?
Yeah, I had turned it on. So about a year and a half before I ended up leaving, I actually didn't start as a content creator. What I did was I created a 4-week education program to teach people how to make sure their retirement accounts were growing like they should be, investing 101. And I sent it to like 40 of my friends and colleagues. And probably back then I was a lot more spicy. So I was like, listen, you're all getting ripped off. You all need to learn this stuff. Come to my like 4-week program. I charged like $80 or something like super not expensive. Again, because I was just like so morally obligated. I was like, I need my friends to know that they can do this and this is not as hard as they think. And what was wild is that I sent out that email to 40 people and like 12 signed up and came to every session. And I was blown away because I, like many people, assumed like maybe everyone else knows this. Like maybe everyone else understands investing and maybe it's just me. And the reception was incredible. And all of those people are very grateful for the ROI they got on their $80 investment or whatever I wildly undercharged for that first cohort. And so that's really what I started doing, was hosting these cohorts, teaching people what my mistakes had been, how to get started, and how to feel confident making sure your 401k and IRA is working for you. And so now I offer that program still. It's much more evolved now. It has an online program. We have a community group coaching. So that program still exists in a totally different way now. So yes, I had started already. And I think that is such a important, again, accidental things I think I did right in hindsight. I wasn't strategically like, I'm going to start this thing before I leave corporate. Like that's not how it happened. But I think I did know intuitively that the value of starting something like that while you're still in corporate is also that your time is so limited. So you have to pick the right thing strategically to do. So I hear a lot of times people are like, if you want to start your own business or be a solopreneur, you have to like burn the boats and like quit your corporate job and go all in. And I think that is just like straight up the worst advice ever. There's no way I would have felt comfortable enough to leave corporate and create this like awesome community and business if I hadn't have like had a test run while I was still in corporate. So I'm really glad that it happened that way for sure, because I learned so much and I learned how to manage my time too when you're limited like that.
Yeah. That's amazing. I completely agree with you. I think you should totally try the thing that you want to do while you have a paycheck. It is so less stressful. And you know, if it works, awesome. If not, cool.
Right.
You learn some skills, you got some experience, and it will help you in some way in the future that maybe you can't see now, but it will have been a good use of your time, even if you completely fail. So I'm a firm believer in not burning the bridges and going all in on your endeavor. I think the only time to do that is like you've already got it making plenty of money, maybe even as much as your day job. Then it's like, cool.
Yeah.
Obviously, if you give it more time, it will make even more than your day job. But up until that point, like do it on the side.
Yeah.
Because you may start something and be like, I don't even like this. Like it makes money, but I don't like it. Like, you know what I
Totally.
mean? And so, total agreement with you there. I want to do a little bit of a left turn and talk about a few things before we wrap this up. One, we're not going to go deep in it at all about your real estate, but I am curious what percentage of your wealth is in real estate versus the stock market.
It's about half. It's about 50-50.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. We can do another episode where you do deep dives into all your mistakes and failures and learnings on real estate. The next thing I want to talk to you about, just because you and I share a passion for fitness, you know, I would love to dig in a little bit just about how your fitness upbringing as an athlete kind of has influenced you as a wealth builder and business builder. So some of the concepts and principles that you found to be helpful in your fitness that you've kind of translated over to your wealth and your business?
It's such a good question. I think there are endless parallels between fitness and sports and business and money. And the first ones that come to mind are, first of all, just the power of consistency and like compound returns on your effort, right? Like investing is the same way. You put in all this work in the first couple of years, you're like, is this really doing anything? And then 10 years later, you wake up and you can fire yourself from your corporate job. Like that didn't happen overnight. And same with sports. Like I didn't start out being the best athlete there ever was, but I was consistent and I kept showing up, and I had a lot of bad seasons. But if you spend 10 years of your life focused on anything, you will be good at it, or certainly competent at the very least. And so I think that understanding that these things take time, that there's not overnight success. The cool thing though, and I also learned this in sports too, is that when you have put in the work, the compound like effect of your knowledge is so insane. Like all of a sudden you can start to do things that you didn't even think were possible. And so with investing, that's a good example. Is last week actually I invested in a real estate syndication, which is basically when you, as an accredited investor, which means that you have a certain net worth or you make a certain amount of money, you can invest in larger projects. And I invested in I think it was a 10 unit with several other partners. And it's great because I don't have to do anything. So I just give them my money and they hopefully do all the right things for me. But that's the kind of investment that like I didn't even know that existed until a few years ago. And now all of a sudden I'm making pretty large investments into larger real estate properties. And there's no way that my mind could have comprehended doing that when I first started breaking up with my financial advisor. And I think the sports is kind of like the same way. Like you start to surprise yourself, fitness, whatever it is, like 5-10 years of doing anything, and you can do things that you didn't think were possible. And even now that's happening for me. Like I've had a lot of surgeries. I mentioned I've ruptured both of my Achilles, and now I'm able to do fun stuff. Like I just started ballroom dancing, which is like my new favorite hobby. It's so fun. I bring down the average age by a lot, but still a blast. And I'm dancing in heels. Like if you told me like you're going to rupture both of your Achilles, but you're also going to be able to dance in heels, I would have been like, all that sounds very wild. But because I have so much control of my body and I have enough muscle to be able to heal from these things, I'm able to do that and do it well. And that's not because I grew up dancing. It's because I have all this foundational fitness and athletic background that helps me be good at my new hobby. So I think that those are kind of some very similar principles. And then also that there are seasons. Like as an athlete, you learn that you don't just go in one direction. You don't just continuously get better. It's 3 steps forward, 2 steps back constantly. Sometimes within the same week. The stock market is the same way. Wealth building is the same way. This year, my net worth actually right now is down because I had a lot of like real estate stuff happen that I didn't expect. But that's okay because I know what's going to happen in the future. And, like seeing your net worth go down isn't like a fun thing, especially when you're not in corporate making a big paycheck anymore. But I also have incredible foundation of retirement accounts, brokerage accounts, multiple properties. Like it's fine. It's not an issue. So a lot of those lessons are valuable. But I think like the biggest one, if I'm really like, there's this great, I think this is actually a Tony Robbins quote. It's, discipline weighs ounces, regret weighs tons. Do you know this quote?
I've heard it. I don't know if Tony Robbins said it or not.
I
I'm
feel
sure
like it
someone
was him.
listening is going to be screaming that it was or was not him.
Yeah, well, let us know in the
But
comments who said that. But I think that is so true, right? Like the only thing that you can control is showing up towards the things that you want to do every day. You can't control
yeah,
necessarily how good you feel, how well it goes every time. Like there's so many things that are out of your control, but you can control if you show up. You can control if you keep trying. You can control if you keep making better choices in the direction of your goals. And then the world will happen and life will happen and it will be more difficult. But that consistency, that discipline, that you can control.
Yeah. It's so, I've been studying the way that money and fitness like interrelate, and the three steps forward, two steps backwards. It's like, oh my God, like, of course. And, I just want to talk about it for just a couple seconds because, like, it's kind of like an epiphany because I haven't thought about it that way, but it's totally true. So, I told you I'm playing pickleball 7 days a week. I also am now working with a pickleball coach because I'm a firm believer in like working with a coach in
Yeah.
any area of your life you want to improve. And all like literally last week, I got way better, and then I took two steps back and I was like, God, like the next, like I got way better in like a period of 3 days. And then the next 2 days, I went backwards and I was like, what the fuck is going on? And then I like literally just brought up like my net worth, like for year to date. And like in April, like the market took a major dump and like my net worth dropped hundreds of thousands of dollars. But year to date, I'm still up massively. And it's just like understanding that like there is that kind of ebb and flow, whether it's in your business, in your net worth, or in your fitness, I think is such a powerful uh, thing that you illuminated. I'm really grateful that you brought that up because that's like a whole new thing, concept for me to think about how the two relate.
Yeah, sure. And I think with money too, or like sometimes you get way worse before things get better. Like how many times have you
Yeah.
focused on your money and then like you lose a bunch of money? Like I've had clients where they start focusing and then something massive happens and they actually end up in more debt. And like the world feels like it's against you. Same
Yeah.
with sports. Like you go out to do something, you get injured, and then you're like rebuilding, right?
Yeah.
Like it can be bad. It can be tough in the beginning.
Yeah.
But if you just keep showing up, you'll get there.
Yeah, it's the whole like when in doubt, zoom out. So like if you're in the like, I just got injured, or I just like had this big, the market's down, or I lost money on this real estate deal, or my radiator went out and I have to like replace it. Like in a year from now, it's not going to matter. In the moment, it feels like the worst thing in the world. But if you can have faith that like over time everything's going to work out, and then as you said, just like keep the discipline, like keep showing up, keep putting in the work, like it's incredible like what compounding growth looks like, whether it's your fitness or your money.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, One related thing to this, because we talked about it offline, and you were like, "Yeah, I really don't feel like I do much for my fitness these days." But like when I met you, I was like, "This woman's super fit." And I've talked about this in post, but not on a podcast. And this is like the rich get richer effect. It's also known as the Matthew effect. And basically, it's like once you reach like a certain level of wealth, like getting wealthier just becomes easier and easier, right? So, like, they say the first $100,000 is the hardest. And then it's like, wow, once you have $1 million invested, like you'll be like, oh, wow, my net worth just grew by like two or $300,000 in the last year and I did nothing.
Yeah.
Right. And I think it's the same thing in our fitness is once you get to a certain level of fitness, maintaining that fitness is infinitely easier than it was to get to that point of that fitness. So we're going to wrap this up. Now I'm going to ask you for your tips, tools, and strategies for your fitness, your money, and your life. What do you got for us, Tess?
Which one do you want me to start with? Fitness?
Let's start with fitness/health because we just were talking about.
Yeah, I mean, I was just reflecting as you were saying that, and it's so hard. I don't know if that's motivating in the beginning, but I want it to be so badly because even now, like, so when I said I don't work out as much as I used to, like, obviously I used to be an elite athlete, so like that training regimen is not what I want to be doing. I don't even want to work out that much anymore, but it is easy, like once you've spent so many years being consistent in something, all I honestly try to do now is go move 4 times a week. That is like my
Mm.
whole fitness routine, and I feel like I look on, I don't know, this is like an arrogant thing to say, but like I feel like I'm in some of the best shape of my life. And but that is because of the 20 years of like intentionality that I had towards my fitness in the first place. So honestly, when it comes to like fitness and health, I think you have to find things that you like or people you like. I right now, I'll be totally honest with you, I'm in pretty good shape right now. I have no motivation to work out. There is no part of me that wakes up and goes, I can't wait to go to the gym. You know what I can't wait to do? Go see all of my hilarious friends at the gym. And that gets me going. And I know when I'm done, I always feel better every time. We all know this, right? So I think like you have to find whatever you need to do to trick yourself into moving because you're always going to feel better. And there have been phases in my life where I've been so freaking motivated. I've got like my shoes and my like outfit like ready to go the night before. Now I'm like dragging myself by my hair. I'm like asking my boyfriend, I'm like, make some coffee, please, so I can get to the gym. But like it's part of my life. Like it's just something that I'm gonna do. Whether I want to do it or not, I'm gonna do it. And so I think that that consistency and discipline is important, but also like figuring out what works for you. Right now, it's like the funny, like there's this guy at the gym, he's like 63. He's in great shape. I know that if I don't go, Tom's going to be like, where are you at? Why weren't you here yesterday? And so now a 63-year-old random man from the gym is what's motivating me to go. So you got to figure out what works for you and set your like minimum expectations for yourself. And so right now my minimum expectation is move 4 times a week. So I don't have any like awesome advice to be honest in the fitness realm because it's hard. As a like I never got to be honest like as an athlete, I never thought it was, I was always confused like how do people not like going to the gym? Like you have goals and dreams, you go to the gym. And now as an adult with like adult things going on, I'm like, ugh, this is this is harder than I thought to get going. So I think that like figuring out what works for you, realizing you are 100% not going to be motivated. Maybe you are, but most of us are not going to be motivated every single day. So what's your bigger why? For me, I want longevity. I want to enjoy my life. You know, God forbid I have kids, I want to be able to hang out with them and like have energy. Like that's why I'm going to the gym now, so I can do fun stuff in my life. So I think that that's probably like where I'm at from a fitness perspective is like if get help similar to you too, like find people to help you. Like right now I have help. Tom's going to yell at me if I don't go to the gym and I'm going to feel bad about that. So find people to help you move in the right direction of your goals. I think is super important.
Yeah. Plus, you got the ballroom dancing,
Yeah.
um, which I think that's another thing is my pickleball obsession has reinvigorated my gym workouts
Mm,
because now every gym workout is like I'm adding in exercises that make me a better pickleball player.
yeah.
So now I'm like, yeah, I want to be stronger on the courts. We got to go to the gym and do these
Yeah.
exercises and make me a more dominating player. And it's like ridiculous. It's like literally my life revolves around a plastic ball with holes in it, but it's amazing.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
like, I love that you're doing ballroom dancing, you know. So, I think having kind of like a MVP, a minimum viable program, yours is like, hey, I move 4 times a week, and you also have like fun endeavors like your ballroom dancing that are, you know, fitness disguised or fun that is like, you know, fitness in disguise.
Totally. Yeah, and that's such a good point. I hadn't thought about that because I am going to the gym and I'm like, oh, this dance routine. I got like tired at my last competition. Like, I got to do more cardio so I don't get more tired while I'm ballroom dancing. Like, that's for sure a thing that happened. So I
I
hadn't
got
put
to
that
do more
together.
calf raises so I can last longer in heels.
Well, I will tell you that my like focus on my post Achilles rupture PT skyrocketed when I started ballroom dancing because I'm like, these heels are terrifying. I need more stability. All of a sudden, I'm doing my exercises like every day. So, for sure, I think that's a great point. Like, if you can find something to help you find something like a goal worth pursuing that can be fitness disguised as fun or the other way around, like, that's such a win.
What do you got for money/wealth?
So I think I already said this, and I'll always say this, is when you realize that no one will care about your money more than you, that puts you in the driver's seat of making decisions. And so that would be my biggest tip, is like, you need to understand enough to make sure your money is doing the right things. And the only way you can do that is realize that you're the only person that's going to care about it. And then I think it's similar to fitness. It's like, what's your why and what do you need to do to get there, and how can you make it consistent? I would say, we were talking about with fitness, like systems, right? Like my system is like, move 4 times a week. That's a system. It's a framework that I have to follow. Knowing that Tom's going to yell at me, that's a thing that's like in my brain, right? Knowing that I have friends at the gym that are expecting me to be there. Like those are all things that like trick me into going right now, because I'm candidly not as motivated as I used to be. With money, you can create systems that force you to do the things you want to do. You want to invest more, reach financial independence. Great. After you get paid, automatically transfer a large portion of your paycheck into an investing account. Like, and then transfer a portion into your savings or your debt payoff or whatever it is, right? Instead of being like, what money do I have left over? You create a system. Because if you have to every month look at your finances and be like, what am I going to do? You're creating more financial decisions. It creates a ton of decision fatigue, and you're probably not going to make the best decisions for your money. But if you can create an automated system where you say, this is how much money I get, this is how much goes to essentials, and I'm going to allocate everything else, including like guilt-free spending, that's how you start to build wealth, is automating it and creating a system, not investing when you feel motivated to build wealth in the future. You just make it happen with a system.
Um, could not agree more. Like you have to build the wealth building system and get it running on autopilot so you can take yourself out of the equation. So that includes automating your investing, automatically paying all your bills, automatically refilling your emergency fund. And then like, you know, in your own story, Tess, you like you were heads down on your like corporate career and you like looked at your investments and you're like, whoa, I
Yeah.
don't even need to work anymore. This is amazing. Because you
Yeah.
built the machine. You built the automated wealth building machine, and then you went focused on other things.
Perfect example. Yes. Perfect example.
Awesome. What do you got for life/happiness?
I'm excited about this question because I recently had an epiphany, and I had a tough summer, candidly. I had to my aunt passed away, and I had to execute her estate, and it was it was a lot. It was a lot emotionally, a lot of triggering things from my past. And so I've been obsessed with trying to feel better. And I was listening to, I think it was Mark Munson, the guy that wrote The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck. Great book. Everyone should read that book if you haven't. And he had a happiness podcast, and his guest pointed out that we were all like trying to chase this ideal of happiness that's like a 10. But like in reality, you're not going to be a 10 all the time. Just like everything else we've talked about today, fitness, money, you're going to have ebbs and flows. Some weeks are going to be better than others. And so instead of like trying to be a 10 and be happiness as a constant state is like so unrealistic. It's a range. So when I started to think about, okay, like their suggestion was like aim to live at like a 6 or a 7, and then I was thinking about, well, that's pretty sustainable. Like my life's pretty good. Like there are days when I have, I have 10 days. I have a lot of like 3 or 4 days, but if I average these out, like I'm actually feeling pretty good, right? Like that's peace, that's sustainable. So instead of like trying to go for this, like forcing myself into this ideal of happiness, I think that borrowing a little bit from like Buddhist principles, in the sense that like everything's changing, clinging creates suffering, letting go creates space. life gets a lot lighter when you stop trying to force the issue. So I was trying so hard to be happy that I was upset that I wasn't happy. And then when I started trying less and was like, maybe I'm just going for a 7, all of a sudden I was like, I'm doing pretty good. Like my new goal of 7 is much more attainable, and I'm actually like kind of there. I'm very grateful. I have an amazing life, a great boyfriend, financial independence. I'm like a below average ballroom dancer, getting better every day. Like things are pretty good, but they're not a 10, and they're not going to be, and that's so unrealistic. So I think the long answer to your question for like life and happiness is I actually stopped trying to be happy and retired the notion of happiness as a goal or a constant state, and just like, what's going to make me feel peaceful, and how can I get this to like a 7. And then all of a sudden I was like, doing pretty good, and then I felt better. So I don't know if that's helpful, but for me that was like such a game changer in a moment when I was like really struggling over the summer. So I've held on to that.
I think that's so good. I kind of went through a similar thing. And in one regard, it almost sounds like you and I are like lowering our standards, right? But that's not true.
No.
So for me, like a 10 out of 10 day for me is like, did I play pickleball? Yes. Amazing. Cool. 10 out of 10. Doesn't matter if I played terrible. I got to play pickleball. Like, cool. 10 out of 10. And I just decided, like, for me to get a 10 out of 10 on like happiness or like how good the day was, like, here's a couple things, like, did I work out or go play pickleball? Did I do something creative, whether that was a post or record a podcast or write a newsletter? And I don't have to do every one every single day, but like over the last 7 days, did I create something that I think is empowering? Did I play some pickleball? Did I work out? Did I spend time with my wife? Cool. 10 out of 10. And I'm like, easy. I'm like that teacher who's like A plus.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, whereas old me was like this perfectionist where if it's like, if I didn't do everything every single day, then it wasn't a good day. And like, I've had to kind of go through a similar thing to you where I just give myself permission to be way happier with less.
Yeah. I love the way it is like the same thing said a different way, and
Yeah.
it makes total sense what you're saying. And I think that has kind of been the result, is that like 7 is the new 10. So like now I'm
Yeah.
like, oh, did you like show up? Did you go to like every day I go to the gym? My boyfriend's like, how was it? I was like, it was amazing. I went, I did stuff,
Yeah.
and I came back like A plus.
Yeah.
So like,
And then you go do ballroom dancing and you're like, hell yeah.
yeah.
That's like a 12 out of 10.
Yeah.
Like, let's go.
Yeah, I did the cha-cha today. Like, how is that not a 10 day?
Amazing. Well, it's Wealth with Tess everywhere on Instagram, her website. She's an incredible educator. She's brilliant, talented, fit, funny. So check out her work. We'll have a link to her free investing guide in the show notes, as well as links to her Instagram, her LinkedIn, her website, etc. Tess, thank you so much for coming on my show. It was so great to meet you at FinCon. I had been following your work online for quite a long time. I saw you at FinCon. I was like, I'm gonna go up to her. I'm going to be that weird random person. I'm like, hey, I'm sorry. I'm not like a weirdo trying to hit on you at the gym. I just want to see if you want to come on my podcast. So thank you so much for coming on the podcast. It was great to meet you in person. And thank you so much for sharing your journey with us here on the Fit Rich Life podcast.
Thank you so much. It's so nice to meet a fellow fitness and money enthusiast. So I'm thrilled to be here. I appreciate you.
Awesome. We'll have you back on to talk about all your real estate endeavors.
Perfect.
Awesome. Thank you.